Okay, so Final Destination 6. I say this in every review for a new entry in a popular horror franchise, but I haven't been this excited for a film since Alien Romulus last year. I've been following this production for the last 4 or 5 years, which I think is evident by the 3, now 4 Final Destination videos I've made. The film is finally out and has been for over 10 days, and I am ready to review it. So when the producers said that this film was going to be different from the others like 2 years ago, they really weren't lying. That really is true. This movie follows many changes that change the Final Destination formula. Some are good, some are bad. The opening of the film is technically a prequel, with it taking place in the 60s, which means that it takes place before any other act in the Final Destination franchise. The Final Destination fan base and just kind of people in general have been asking for a prequel film that takes place between like the 1900s and the 70s, and this was sort of a way that they could have satisfied that hunger that the fan base has had for a while. And speaking of, the opening isn't great. I'm sorry, but it's basically just a worse version of the premonition in the book Dead Man's Hand, which is one of the many Final Destination novels that were written in the early 2000s. Both the premonitions from the book and the movie take place on top of a big tower or restaurant-like structure, except Dead Man's Hand, in my opinion, did the premonition a lot better. Maybe it's the fact that the book is written relatively well, or the fact that it's a lot more horror-oriented than the premonition of the movie, but Dead Man's Hand opening is so much better than Final Destination 6's that the movie definitely feels a lot cheaper and pales in comparison to the novel. The whole film kind of pales in comparison to a lot of the acts in Final Destination, and just many things in general. It just feels cheap. The film just feels cheap. Bad cinematography, horrific color work, terrible wardrobe, terrible production design. All that put together makes the whole film feel just really cheap. Not to mention the fact that for some godforsaken reason, they made a lot of the movie handheld, or a lot of shots moved to handheld, and the framing is really weird, which ends up making it look a lot like an episode of Modern Family. I don't know what the fuck the DOP was doing there. Also, the opening just feels way too subjective. The whole point of the Final franchise was to make people afraid of everyday life, real things and events like a bridge or a plane or a highway, stuff that people encounter every day. There is no real life structure like the one in the opening, except for the Space Needle in Seattle, which is only a very small only has a very small amount of people who encounter it frequently, like the people who work there. Other than that, that's it. I've never seen the Space Needle, and I live in the United States. I live in California, down the street from Washington. I've never even seen the Space Needle in real life. This is way too subjective to be effective. It feels like they're taking way too far of a step away from the franchise's amazing, iconic openings that feature everyday things in favor for something more stylized. The Final Destination franchise, as I've come to love it, has 2 very specific tones. The first tone, in my opinion, is a lot better than the second, which is the horror Final Destination. This sort of section of Final Destination is all of the Final Destination media that is more horror-oriented and has more of a serious tone. This includes all of the books, Final Destination 1, Final Destination 2, and Final Destination 5. Then, the other section, or the other tone of Final Destination, is the more comedy or lighthearted Final Destination. This includes 3, 4, and 6. The horror Final movies are just so much better. I already explained the tone of these movies in my other review of all the movies about a year and a half ago, but 1, 2, and 5 are the best films of the franchise for a reason. They're actually scary. They have a lot more of a serious feeling than 4 or 6, which is partly why 4 was so bad. Final Destination 3, however, has a very good mixture of both tones, in a way that I think perfectly blends stupid comedy and horrific circumstances. Let me give you an example here. By examining the tanning death, whatever you want to call it, in Final Destination 3. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically these 2 characters in the film, these 2 girls go into a tanning salon, totally unaware that they're on death's list, and eventually end up burning to a crisp inside of the bed simultaneously while they're next to each other. It's funny at first, right? These two relatively funny, kind of ditzy characters that kind of seem like they just walked right out of a Lizzie McGuire film are getting burned alive inside of these 2 tanning beds. It's a crazy ass contradiction, and it's hilarious at first. They're both topless, you're laughing, but then you start to realize how fucked up this actually is. These are somebody's children. That's somebody's daughter. It's there are two people involved in the scene, but there is no relief from the unimaginable pain of every single surface touching your bare skin, sizzling you while you cannot get out. This is pretty scary if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. Now, if you actually know what it's like to burn alive, if you're like actually aware of what it is, you'll know that the fire actually eventually burns your nervous system after a while, and therefore you stop feeling anything by the time you die, and so it's pretty much painless for like the last like 10 minutes. But if we ignore that, the tanning sequence is a perfect example of how Final Destination 3 mixed funny stuff, hilarious, and horrific stuff. And that's part of why Final Destination 3 is a good example of what Final Destination 6 should have been, which is a mix of the two tones. But Final 6 really doesn't even try to mix in the other tone. I mean, it's entirely just a gory comedy. It's not even scary anymore. The lack of a score that actually fits the rest of the films, I'm sure, lends a lot of the tone to 6. Shirley Walker's original soundtrack for the first 3 movies was remarkable. It perfectly captured the tone of the trilogy, and it perfectly captured the feeling, just the feeling of the films. Then, when she unfortunately passed, Brian Tyler stepped in and scored 4 and 5. He killed it. He fucking murdered that shit. The score for 5 especially, he perfectly captured Shirley's tone, and you even used her theme cue from time to time while still adding something new. He caught lightning in a bottle again. Brian Tyler absolutely murdered the scores for Final Destination 4 and 5. Listening to the score for Final Destination 5 feels like you're actually watching the film. And now we come to Final Destination 6, which is scored by Tim Wynn. Not very well. It's not really a bad score, not necessarily a bad piece of music. It's just really meh, which is the biggest possible sin you could make while making a piece of music for a film. While creating a score, it should be, obviously good. It should be entertaining, and when it's not, that's a huge sin. Sure, the score shines sometimes and has some good moments, but I can't help but feel like it's really not that great. Shirley Walker's theme, which if you don't know is the which is present in all 3 of the OG movies, is perfect. It's one of my favorite pieces of music, one of my favorite cues, and it strikes a sense of fear and excitement into me every single time. Brian Tyler used this from time to time in his soundtrack for Final Destination 4, especially in the opening credit sequence, but in Final Destination 5, he made his own theme, his own cue. Brian seems to like to do this a lot in his scores. He did this for Scream 5 and 6, creating a new sort of a Ghostface theme that absolutely bangs, and is very similar to the Final Destination themes. You can tell that there's influence between the two kind of cues between the 4 films that he did. But neither Shirley's theme nor Brian's theme is at all present in the score for Final Destination 6, which was by far the most disappointing part of the film. The special effects in the Final Destination franchise have never really been good. They almost always look distractingly bad, and that's still the case here. Almost every kill looks just really just ridiculously bad, especially in the opening. A lot of the special effects are very obviously over CG'd, and almost nothing is practical. If you go farther into the movie, as you go farther into the film, the kills get a lot better, especially the kill with the garbage truck. That one actually looks really good, and I think they did that mostly practical, so I think that's part of why it looks good. But just most of the effects in this movie are distractingly bad, and that's nothing new. They've always been really bad in the whole franchise. And there's also no opening credit sequence. What the fuck? Why is there no opening credits? I have no idea. I heard some rumors that they had deleted the opening credit sequence, that they were making one to put in the film, but then they deleted it last minute because they figured that Gen Z and Gen A wouldn't be able to handle it because of their really low attention spans. And I thought to myself, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. But also, it's Final Destination, and they've always had an opening credit sequence. There's an opening credit sequence. There's an opening credit sequence in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What the fuck is this? Where are the credits? So the non-existent opening credit sequence mixed with the goofy tone, mixed with a bad score, all kind of felt like a slap in the face to me. The movie kind of kind of feels like if Scary Movie did Final Destination, if Scary Movie made fun of Final Destination, this is like what they would do. Very similar in tone, very similar in humor. I can guarantee that if Scary Movie 6 makes fun of Final Destination for some reason, then this is almost exactly what it's going to be like. I don't really like how they removed the signs throughout the film. Usually throughout the franchise, Death has given hints to the characters in the film as to what is about to happen to them. Death like kind of gives you the main character hints throughout the movie, and that happens in every single film, I think, except maybe 5. And yet here there is nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that here. It actually kind of adds more of a sense of spontaneity, which I do like. However, I do feel like it would have been better if they had stuck with the signs throughout the whole film, like in Final Destination 2. All that being said, I still really like the movie. This is not a negative review. I love the way they explained Bloodworth and tied him into the story. Tony Todd's goodbye to us, the fans, and the world as an entire place was really perfect. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was amazing. That scene was incredible, and they did so many things correct in this film that it really does kind of blow what they did incorrect out of the water. Eric is funny, he's charming, and he's goofy. He's some sort of a strange combo of Ian and his girlfriend from Final Destination 3. He would have been a much better lead in this film. He would have been a much better main character, as the one we have as the actual main character isn't great. She's kind of meh, nothing crazy. I found that the lead for Final Destination 6 kind of always had the same look on her face. I felt like she wasn't really reacting to that much, like, physically. And if I were to take screenshots of like her reactions to every kill in the film, they would all look pretty much the same. I feel like she had no facial movement, and maybe that's the issue of the editors. Maybe they cut out too many of her reactions or something, I don't know, but I did really prefer the woman who auditioned for the role that in the audition tape that she didn't get the role. I much preferred her to the actor that we got in the actual final cut of the film, because she's really not that great. But I do enjoy her character. I think her and her brother's troubled relationship with their mother is fantastic. I like the way they kind of stuck to the whole family theme of the film and kind of, had family matters within the plot of the movie, which, makes the tone of the film present throughout the entire thing, which is a sign of good storytelling. Speaking of the storytelling structure, I really do like how they integrate the opening scene into the entire film and kind of have it unravel throughout the whole plot instead of having it happen all at once like they do throughout the whole film. It makes for a very interesting, new, refreshing storytelling structure in the Final Destination franchise, and I do really think that it's cool that they kind of cut out half of the opening and then had it kind of reveal itself throughout the rest of the film through Iris's perspective. Iris, they changed her name. I don't know why the fuck. Her name is Esther, as has been revealed through many leaks. If you go watch my previous movies or my previous videos on the Final Destination 6 leaks and all that, they all said Esther. And then even in the audition tape, they say Esther, I think. I think at one point they say Esther. So they changed her name from Esther to Iris. I don't fucking know why. Maybe they saw the audition tape leak and said, okay, well, we'll change the name. I don't know, but they changed her name to Iris. However, I do like how they did that whole thing with the opening and the structure of it. It was good. It was good. I fucking loved the sound design. You don't really get to hear many good sound-based scenes anymore in modern cinema. That was kind of a thing that they abandoned in like the early 2000s. However, they really use sound a lot better in 6 compared to the rest of the films. Also, Death using a penny to get into smaller crevices and like smaller spaces in order to create chaos, like using pennies or a penny as as a limb. If you get it, you kind of have to watch the film to know what I'm talking about. I thought that was really cool, even though it's an obvious MacGuffin that the writers put in just because they couldn't figure out how to make things happen in order for the disasters to begin normally. If you ignore the fact that it's an obvious writing issue, it's actually really cool. And I do encounter pennies every single day, so this makes me a little weary of them. So was this film partially disappointing? Yeah. Does it need some work? Yeah. Does Final Destination 7 need to make some serious changes? Yeah. Did I still love it? Yeah, I did. It really did feel like the return of the Final Destination franchise after 14 years, and I really do think it's worthy of being in the franchise. I think they did so many good things here. I love how they changed up the formula. The kills are still incredible. I mean, come on, it's Final Destination. Obviously, the kills are going to be incredible, and it's just they did so many things correct, but they really do need to focus on what makes Final Destination Final Destination. Otherwise, then it'll no longer be Final Destination. I think the writers and directors of Final Destination 7, which I'm sure is already greenlit, they need to go back and watch Final Destination 5, 2, and 1 and really just focus on that tone, because that's what Final Destination is. So yeah, it was good, however heavily flawed.